Hello, you are now entering the infinite void. Hang on tight. We cannot save you now.
Hello and welcome to this week's episode. I'm your co-host Matty.
And I'm your co-host Jacob, and today's episode we're carrying on with our series, The Future of Humanity, with part 2 on transportation. And so last week we took a break out of the series, and shout out to the guys at UAP Media UK for being our first interview. It was loads of fun, and it's been cool seeing everybody's comments on social media with how we conducted the interview and stuff. So big thanks. And if you're here from that podcast after last week, welcome. We kind of talk about everything to do with space exploration, science, with a little bit of philosophy and technology sprinkled on top. I think when we started this podcast, we were mostly aiming at that, but looking at it now, we kind of talk about the future more than anything else, I think. And it's evident with this series too. So
yeah, this is probably going to be our largest series, so it's going to get a big back catalogue of future-y stuff. So
yeah, so if that sounds like something you're interested in, you are in the right place.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, transportation. It's an interesting one because it has the ability to completely change the world, and it has completely changed the world, and obviously it's going to be huge. So how do you want to kick this off?
I guess I know you've been looking at some sort of more historical stuff, haven't you? Like some of the wacky ideas of transportation in the past. So do you want to kick off with some of that? We'll start at the beginning.
Yeah. So as we know, transportation today is mostly powered by fossil fuels. Yes, that's right, listeners. I'm going to give you a little intro onto transportation. But yeah, as you know, recently, right now, it's mostly just fossil fuels, and we're trying to ease our way off that. So most of my research is kind of where we could go with this, some fun alternative versions of it, and some other things that ultimately failed. But yeah, so let's kick off with some wacky ideas to start. So we had the air-propelled train to start.
Yes, I do know a bit about this one. It's pretty crazy.
Yes, it is a little bit bonkers, and you can understand why it was abandoned, because the health and safety for it just seems a little bit crazy, especially with the G-forces and stuff that it was conducting. You kind of almost have to imagine like a I can't remember what they're called, but you know, like in old investment, in fact they're probably still in investment buildings, you know, like where you put the piece of paper in the thing.
Oh, like the vacuum tube things, yeah.
Yeah, imagine placing a human in one of those. In theory, I think it's a very cool idea, and as a kid, I'd totally like just think that was one of the coolest things ever, and I can imagine it would really work. But yeah, not a very good idea. And then you had the bounce tube pneumatic travel, which I didn't really understand, but from what I gathered, it was basically an inflatable tube that something bounced off all the walls down, and it kind of just went. Is unusual in itself. And then we've got things like the jetpack, which people throughout the year have tried to create.
We probably won't talk about it later on because I'll forget, but while we're on it, jetpacks, I think they have like an actual potential to be useful.
They do.
Have you ever seen like the modern ones? There's like a team of them in Dubai that do like funky videos with.
Yes, I have.
Like Emirates. Yes. That is just the dream, isn't it?
Yeah, I think actually as well. I might be wrong here, but I swear I've seen something on the news. Haven't like the mountain rescue up in like Scotland and Wales? Don't they use like a jetpack?
Yeah,
or they're trialing a jetpack, aren't they? And there's like a guy that like literally just jumps up this cliff and flies and like picks someone up.
Yeah, so I think it was mountain rescue in Wales or Scotland. They had like one big like fan on the back, and then you had like two like on your hands that you can control and like move around with. And the idea was that like it would probably take like 2 hours for like a mountain rescue team to like trek up the mountain to be somewhere, whereas this guy can like do it in like 10 minutes, so at least get like some first aid. And it just looked awesome. And like I'm thinking like it's electric powered, so it's green, it's all good for the future, you know, it's quick, there's no like big vehicles involved, so like the worst thing that's going to happen is two people collide. Like you know, just it's sort of like my old friend the electric scooter, but better. Like I could just get the train to town, get out of train, and just do the last mile on my jetpack.
You know what? You know what? You are right. And I was thinking about this as well because it's the same. It's the same with drone technology. Do you think
Mhm.
there is a market for like a drone the size of a golf cart
Mhm.
that is just one person, like a motorbike, but it's a drone
Yeah,
for you? You just get in it and you can fly it to work.
yeah. I genuinely think there is like there are companies that are doing this. Do you know eHang,
I don't
Chinese
know.
company? I've got some investments in them, but they're a Chinese company, and they do exactly this. They've got like it looks like a very small car. I think it could probably hold 4 people with like a big like rotor on each corner, like a quadcopter sort of thing.
Right. Okay.
And they've just sort of started doing it. So I think it's in Zhuhai in China, which is near sort of Macau and Hong Kong. I think it was Zhuhai. They've like got this built. They've got like a few heliports like around the town, and people can like hop into these things and do like a virtual, like an aerial tour of the city,
No
like
way.
in these like autonomous drone quadcopter things.
That's
And I think
insane.
they've just got like planning permission to like build one in, I think Switzerland. It's somewhere in Europe.
Yeah.
So like this could like happen, and like at the moment it's just sort of like a novelty. I like, oh, you could fly around town for 10 minutes, but like this could be awesome.
Yeah, no, that would be awesome. Because like I always used to like when I was a little bit younger, you'd see those videos on like Facebook and stuff, wouldn't you? Of where like someone would have strapped like 8 drones to a bath and they're
Mhm.
flying it in a field and stuff.
Yeah,
But like that would be so cool. Just
yeah.
like a go-kart drone that you could sit in and just go back and forth to work and stuff. Because like you're saying, they're electric. I think obviously we got to figure out the sound because drones are quite loud. But once we get like quiet ones, if that's even achievable, then I'm totally
Mhm.
down. I'm totally down to have a personal flying drone. That would be insane.
Yeah, that'd just be great. So yeah, carry on.
But yeah, so like moving more into like newer technologies, I've kind of gone a little bit more out there then. And one concept is being put into action right now, and then I've got two that sound absolutely ridiculous. So
Mhm.
let's start with the one that is being put into play now. And I think as well you've got a little bit of research on this one, but it's Hyperloop. So
Mhm.
one of Musk's companies, and basically it's like a tunnel almost that
Mhm.
is connected to like an electric track, from what I've gathered, and then you put the like at the moment it's only the Tesla, isn't it? And that's like designed to connect to an open source vac train design from my notes, and basically it just powers it kind of like a metro, doesn't it? But
Mhm.
it's a
Yeah.
car. And
Yeah. So this is involved with his boring company as well, isn't it?
yeah,
That's the one they're doing there. And I think they've got one of these tunnels built in Las Vegas. I think they've sort of got a prototype one built. And I think they've actually got orders from like other cities, like start tunneling and like do this in other cities. So like this is something that's probably going to happen. Um, yeah, I always get confused. There's Hyperloop and Boring Company. I think one is more like the Boring Company is more like the cars, like the individual cars going through like tunnels and stuff, and then the Hyperloop is it's almost like the air powered train thing. It's like a big tube which like
yeah,
train stuff
yeah.
trains travel through. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just seeing here. It's a you are right. The Boring Company one is the electric tunnel one, and then the Hyperloop one is a sealed tube with low air pressure, so it has next to no air resistance or friction, and then it just flies it through the tube
Hmm.
at a hypersonic speed,
Yeah.
and it's super sustainable.
Hmm.
And it says here very energy efficient, and it could reduce travel times. And
Hmm.
they're even thinking about doing it for long distances, like flights,
Yeah.
like under the seas and stuff. So
Yeah. Yeah. So
that's
I have seen plans like Hyperloop for like long distance stuff. I think if it does happen, one of the first ones they're planning to do is LA to San Francisco, um, which is quite a distance along the American West Coast. Um, yeah, these are interesting, and I'm sort of glad that like these new technologies are coming along. But both of them, I think, like have quite big flaws that sort of come up all
yeah,
the time. So the Hyperloop one is particularly in the West, like West America, is you're relying on this big tube being intact. Like, what if there was an earthquake or something?
Well,
So-
one thing I did see about this was they did say, didn't they? If it the further it is down, the less
Mhm.
it less it shakes, isn't it? Because
Mhm.
that vibration goes up. Because they were saying
Mhm.
that most of the tunnels, when they have been in earthquakes, they've like had barely any damage because they've had
Mhm.
all the like the kinetic energies just passed through them instead of like ended on them.
Mhm.
But yeah, I'd agree. Just thinking, because like obviously we'd be talking much larger distances, but
Mhm.
if you're not like, say if you're going like, I don't know how feasible it would be, but let's say they built a hyperloop from America to the United Kingdom.
Mhm.
Surely that would be a shorter distance too, because you're not going over the curvature of the Earth. You could kind of just go through the Earth, but not.
Mm.
I'm not talking like actually through the Earth. I'm just talking like a couple of miles down. But you'd miss quite a bit, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Or would you not? Or would you have to go with
I
it?
don't think it's massive, to be honest, because of the distance you're traveling. You can't really go more than. I'm pretty certain they wouldn't tunnel
Yeah.
under the Atlantic Ocean. It's just
Yeah.
too deep. So it would. To be honest, it would probably have to go through like via Greenland and Iceland anyway, so it would be much longer.
Yeah, it's probably just going to be something that's used to get from like city to city, isn't it? And
Mhm.
it makes sense as well because like it's better than roads in an aspect of like it's multi-dimensional down there. Do you know what I mean? Like there's so much more room underground than there is on top.
Mhm.
I know. Like I think a lot of people see the future being flying cars and like a bit like Star Wars, like multi-lane traffic and stuff. But it's
Mhm.
probably more likely to be underground,
Mhm.
especially when we like start building moon bases and Mars bases. We will probably have underground tunnels for like Hyperloop and stuff with that kind of stuff too, because it will just make more sense.
Mhm.
So it's an interesting one because I think it's a technology that has really good potential for our solar system,
Mhm.
but it's like you're saying, some of the stuff that we're doing with it now, it's not fully there yet, is it?
Mhm. Yeah, the boring one in particular with the cars and stuff. Like I see us moving away from like individual transport, like cars. Like in 10, 20 years time, I don't see everyone owning cars like they do now. Like I genuinely think most people use public transport a lot more because we're moving into cities and things, and then like we will own electric scooters and bikes and stuff to get around like short distances within our neighborhoods. Like so to build these tunnels for like the cars and stuff, I just don't. The tunnels will be useful. They'll be used for something eventually, like even if they're used for like cycle lanes. But
Yeah.
but I don't see them like being used in the way they are at the moment. Because at the moment, basically, it's a tunnel that you drive in, and then your car is like put on a little plate and shifted around very quickly,
Mm.
which is cool. But I don't see that like that happening in the future. To be honest, with
No,
the
that's
way
fair.
transport's going, but yeah, I think the actual tunneling technology stuff is really interesting, and will definitely be useful in the future.
Mm. To be fair, just in general, it's probably worth a mention, like mentioning Tesla and electric cars, actually, just
Mm-hmm.
as a future option of transport, because that's definitely the way that it's going. I think, isn't it by 2030 in the UK, all cars must be electric?
They're going to stop selling new petrol vehicles by 2030. Yeah, I don't know when. I don't know if they've set a date yet where petrol vehicles will have to be off the road, but um, they're going to stop selling new petrol vehicles from 2030. Yeah,
That's good.
plan. Yeah.
It's good. It's not good enough, but it's good.
Yeah,
But
I did see Norway this. I think this year or last year, the majority of cars were electric that were sold new for the first time. So that's good. Norway lead on this as always.
yeah, there's that the new Ford advert actually is
Hmm.
that it's Will Ferrell like getting really angry about like America not leading in innovation in this sector, and he's like, "Do you realize how much like electric cars Norway have in comparison to America?" Gets like really angry, and then Ford's all because they've launched the electric Mustang, haven't they? So
Hmm.
which is kind of cool. It's pretty sweet. I did see as well that the supercar company Lamborghini have announced that they're going to have an electric Lamborghini by 2045, which is kind of cool too.
Hmm.
But yeah, it is pretty sweet. But the next bit of travel that I've got, well, transportation, is the space elevator.
Hmm.
So I can imagine a lot of listeners to our podcast can conceptualize what a space elevator is if they've seen any classic sci-fi films and stuff. But basically, what it is a planet to space transportation system. And like it's got a main component, which would be like a cable or a tether, which would be anchored to the surface and extended out into space. And it would basically act as like a launching pad from the planet to surface to space for vehicles that might not necessarily have a big enough engine to get out of orbit or something. We could use like something to sling it off the planet, which I think is cool and sounds awesome.
Yeah, it has the potential for things like space stations and stuff. Rather than having to do like multiple launches to just get stuff up there, you could just send it up on this elevator pretty easily because, like you said, one end would be tethered to like the Earth, and the other end would be tethered to like a geosynchronous satellite in space. So the only real energy you've got to use is the electric energy of lifting the lift. So rather than launching anything, it's a lot more efficient, and you could save massive amounts of money on launch costs. But yeah, it all hinges on this tether and whether we can make a tether like that. So theoretically, I think carbon nanotubes are strong enough and stiff enough. Not stiff enough. I'm forgetting my A level material science. Strong enough to sort of do this stuff and form this tether, but we just don't have the ability to make them in sort of quantities big enough to do that sort of distance. So
yeah, it's
got potential.
I was going to say my my bit of notes said here you could have other alternatives to carbon nanotubes were boronitride nanotubes and diamond nanotubes, but they don't have that technology yet.
Yeah,
but I'd be interested in knowing knowing the math behind, would the geocentric satellite generate any kinetic energy in the launch? Because if it's obviously, if the Earth's spinning, there might be like a bit of juice on that tether that would launch it down. Do you know what I mean? Because it would like the natural motion would it be for it to like go out if you're spinning? Do you know what I mean? So I wonder if it has any natural like kinetic energy or anything behind it.
I'm trying to think. I'm trying to remember my like physics. I think there will at the end there will be a bit of centrifugal force of being flung out, but
oh yeah, it says here that at the upper end there is a strong centrifugal force, but it would still require power to get it over the halfway.
Yeah,
thing. But that's kind of cool. So it's like a slightly eco spaceport.
Yeah, exactly. Is it? And again, it's a lot more efficient, and you can power it by electric. And at the moment, it seems like rockets could possibly be the last thing to go electric. I don't ever see it happening. So
if you had to pick a date, like a year,
honestly, I'd say it would never happen.
You don't think electric rockets are ever going to happen?
No, I cannot. I don't think there's any technology that we know of that could possibly get enough energy density to be used on a rocket.
What about electric planes? What year? If you had to guess.
Fully electric or like a hybrid sort of thing?
Okay, we'll do 2 dates. When the first one flies commercially, and then when all planes are electric.
First fully electric plane, 2075.
That's quite far off.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think for the next 50 years or stuff, we'll be relying on. I can see a sort of a hybrid plane, so something that uses like conventional fuel to get it into the air, and then it's designed to be a lot more efficient and aerodynamic, so it could just use sort of like small electric motors to keep it going.
Prius of the skies.
But for sort of 50 years, I think we're going to be relying on greener jet fuel made from biofuels or things to get us there. Because the amount of energy that you need, the energy density of batteries and stuff is just nowhere near good enough.
Well, for the sake of making a bet, then I'm going to say 2070. So if it's before 2070, I win. If it's after 2070, 3, you win. And then, so for like my other crazy one that I've got, I'm going to have to read my notes for this because if I'm honest with you, I don't fully understand it, but I wanted to talk about it because as an idea, it sounded absolutely crazy. So it's called an orbital ring. Have you heard of what this is before?
Heard of it, don't know much about it.
So it is a concept of an artificial ring placed around the body and set in a rotation at such a rate that the apparent centrifugal force is long enough to counteract the force of gravity for the Earth, which is then required to be a speed in order of 10 kilometers a second, which is compared to a typical low Earth orbit of 8 kilometers a second. The structure is intended to be used as a space station or a planetary vehicle for very high-speed transportations or space launches. Is also able to move the planet slightly because the cable is spinning faster than orbit velocity. There is a net outward force that is countered by the internal tension within the cable. This resists any attempt to bend it and allows it to carry the load. In a typical conceptation, the motorized platform is placed on a cable that runs in an opposite direction at this speed, which makes it stationary to the ground. Jesus. The requirement to build a single cable as large as this obviously is a practical problem, which has led to variations in design. But effectively, listeners, it acts as like a second floor to planet Earth. And it also allows Earth to move out of the way of things, which I can imagine sounds like something like a Type 2 civilization or something would build. You know what I mean? Like, solar flares are coming. Move the planet. Oh, a comet's coming. Move the planet. Oh, we need to double our population. Just build a second floor on planet Earth.
Yeah, I'm having a look at it now. It's a bit odd. I think the idea is that you would like this like cable going around the Earth, and then you could like transport stuff along it using the platform.
Yeah.
Is that the idea?
Yeah.
Oh, and it sort of like holds itself up using the centrifugal force. It's a bit of a weird one.
Super wacky.
It seems to be space elevator taken to an even more extreme sort of example, isn't it?
Yeah.
But yeah,
it's gonna hold my beer. But it looks kind of cool. I mean, it's an interesting idea, and I'm all for these crazy kind of things. I love it when I see like crazy sci-fi things. And it would be like, imagine the anxiety lift off planet Earth if we had the ability to get out of the way of danger. Because then it would literally be down to us. Do you know what I mean? It wouldn't be about like, oh, well, we could be in the wrong place at the wrong time. Like, we could just shift the planet. It could just be like, the sun's growing. Let's just move it out to like a Mars orbit when it becomes a red giant. We like Earth. We want to keep it.
Yeah, it'd be pretty awesome. I do think we need to be investing more in asteroid protection at least.
Yeah.
So yeah, maybe the idea has legs, but I think that will probably be after the electric planes.
Yeah, no, for sure.
So yeah, some of the stuff that I've been looking at is I guess sort of like the near term thing, so not the so wacky inventions and stuff. So the first one I want to talk about is Maglev trains, because I think they're really interesting, and they're a sort of idea that's been around for like quite a while now.
Yeah.
I think like the first sort of Maglevs were built decades ago, back in the 60s or 70s, I think. But to date, there's only been one large-scale commercial Maglev ever built, which is odd because they seem quite promising. So the one that's been built is in Shanghai. It runs from Shanghai Airport to the sort of city as like a airport shuttle, and it's crazy fast. It is stupidly fast. It's the fastest train ever built. So I'm just trying to. I've lost it in my notes now. The actual speed, but yeah, Maglev technologies are expected to sort of become a lot bigger over the next decade or so. There's plans to build one in Japan, plans to build a sort of new bullet train. So between Tokyo and Osaka, the bullet train runs at the moment. So they want to build a second line, which will be Maglev, that runs alongside it. Will be like a premium, super fast express line. And yeah, lots of potential interesting things happening in that field.
Yeah, it says here it can go 385 miles an hour.
Yeah,
or 620 kilometers an hour. That's crazy.
Mm-hmm. So like at that sort of speed, you're sort of you're almost like competing with planes at that point. Like once you take in like the fact that planes are usually built outside of cities and you have to get there and then you have to do your checking and stuff. For any distance of sort of 500 or even perhaps up to 1,000 miles, Maglev can like potentially take a lot of that traffic, which is obviously good. So
how is the acceleration on it like faster, or do you gradually get brought up to that speed, or are you like pinned in?
No, it's pretty gradual. It's like a high-speed train.
Okay, so it just slowly gets up, so you kind of don't even notice. It's like relative to you kind of thing when you're on it.
Yeah, Maglev's an interesting one because it doesn't. The problem is it's very, very expensive. It's a lot more expensive than sort of high-speed trains even. So
does no Western country have it? It says here that it's only China, South Korea, and Japan.
Yeah. So China's one is what I would consider like a proper commercial thing that actually serves a purpose. The South Korean and Japan ones are much sort of smaller and less useful. There was some. I know Germany developed a lot of the technology, and they built one of these way back. So just found a little article now. Experimentally from 1984 and passenger operation from 1989 to 1991, the M-Bahn in Berlin was 1.6 kilometers long and used maglev trains. So yeah, and the UK even has a very small one at Birmingham Airport.
Okay, yeah,
those things, yeah.
That little, I know what you're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that thing makes me fall over if I'm not holding on to the thing. That's quick.
Yeah, so the ones that are there now, that's just a train system. But it used to be a maglev, the international shuttle thing that they have at Birmingham Airport in the UK. But yeah, no one see. So Germany are really the ones that did a lot of the development on this, but they haven't really done anything with it, mainly because of price and stuff. But I think as sort of air transport becomes more congested and more environmentally disastrous, maglev has more sort of legs to it because it can sort of take a lot of the sort of strain from air travel. But yeah, maglev, interesting technology.
Do you think we'll ever have like a magnet kind of esque technology for like a personal air vehicle or something like that, or do you think that that's like way off?
I don't think so really, because the main thing that the maglev gives you is sort of efficiency, because you've not got as much sort of friction and stuff, and that scales with the size of the thing. If you're going to build sort of the infrastructure and the tracks and stuff is very, very expensive. So if you're going to build it, you want big things carrying lots of people on it, not just sort of individual people sort of thing. So yeah, but maybe that's I think the sort of future is more in small electric vehicles going forward for sort of independent individual travel.
Yeah. Oh, that was something actually I wanted to. I got two other little space transportation methods that we're currently like working on. You had the light sail, which is an interesting one. I think that has like massive pros for small scale space like equipment, like if we want to send small things to
Mm-hmm.
planets far away, because aren't they talking about using the light sail for a Alpha Centauri mission?
Yeah, I've seen that suggested. Yeah.
Which, and for anyone listening that they don't know what the light sail is, isn't it effectively like it kind of just looks like a foil sail, and they want to like have beam high energy lasers at it that can like accelerate it to really close speeds to the speed of light, but it's not nowhere near the speed of light, but it's like close to the speed of light, isn't it?
Yeah, so you use these sort of massive sails to. I think you can use sunlight, but idealistically, we just sort of put them in space and then point big lasers at them and use the lasers to just push the sails along using the momentum of the light. And they reckon they can get to significant fractions of the speed of light, which will make travel to nearby stars feasible in years rather than millennia.
Would that then mean that because obviously it's still going to take then years for that data to go back and forth, isn't it? It's still going to be a problem. Like, I find that a really big issue with space, especially with transport, is just how long everything takes. Like, there's going to be a data problem when we like start spreading out. Do you know what I mean? It just seems like even if we figure out like, because that here's a future transportation hypothetical idea. Like, even like if we figure out like warp drive or something one day, or like bending space time or something crazy, like even if we can do that, it's still going to take thousands of years for the data to then get there. Do you know what I mean? And I find that a problem. I don't know how we get around that one, but obviously you can't break the rules.
I think I said in the past, like, I think within our solar system, there's a chance we'll see like humans going back and forth between Mars and Venus and stuff. But personally, I think if we ever sort of get out of our solar system and start going across the galaxy, it won't be a case of like, oh, this is humans going and doing something. It will be like, this is a new group of people who are now separate from humans. Like they're not us. It's sort of like in the older days when like people sailed across the Atlantic and colonized America. Like those people weren't very quickly. They weren't British anymore. They were Americans. And in the same way, like if people go out across the galaxy and sort of inhabit places, they won't be Earthlings. They're going to be their own individual civilizations pretty much immediately, because it's going to be thousands of years before they have any contact with anyone, at which point 20, 30 generations of people have gone past. So
no, that's fair. What happens then though, because like, is it a paradox if we do like figure out some crazy way to like travel at insane speeds, if we're like zipping in and out of places, how would then, like, do you know what I mean? It would like take thousands of years for, say, if you sent like something from Earth to, I don't know, the Andromeda Galaxy, and you were like, you sent something going, I'm leaving today. By the time that gets to the Andromeda Galaxy, it'd be like 4,000 years, or how many? I don't even know.
I forget how far away it is.
Yeah, it's like 4,000 years, or it's 4 billion. I can't remember. It's something crazy. It's definitely a 4. I know for sure. And if I'm wrong, I'm sorry, YouTube. But yeah, so say if you sent like a message to Andromeda and you were like, I'm leaving, but then your like means of transport was warping like space time, or like, I don't know, an Eisenhower bridge or something crazy that we figure out, you would then get there, have your visit, and be able to come back before your message even got there saying that you were like leaving.
I'm going to say it now. There is no way we will do faster than light travel. Not possible ever. Like I know people are looking at warp drives and whether we can like bend space and time and stuff. If that ever turns out to be wrong, you can basically shred any understanding we have of the universe at all. As I'm putting my foot down as a physicist, we will not do faster light transport.
All right, that's fair. I'm gonna keep my dream alive slightly, because I would like to be able to see the whole universe, and for me, that's the only way I'm ever going to be able to see it, because I'm selfish and I'm only going to live a short lifespan in the grand scheme of things. But no, that's fair. All right then. Well, I'll stop talking about that one.
No, you carry on. But
No. That was just my question. I was interested in, like, if we did ever figure something out like that. That it's like you're saying, there's a huge problem then, because
Mhm,
data's getting there much slower than we are, and it
mhm.
just nothing would make sense because
Yeah,
you'd be able to do everything before anybody knows that you're going to do anything.
yeah. Well, no, like the thing that can't be transported faster than light is information. You can't
Yeah,
do like if the sun disappeared right now, it's not just like the light wouldn't get to us, the gravity wouldn't
yeah.
get to us
It's
for
like
eight
everything for
minutes.
8 minutes. Yeah,
So if you're sending people somewhere, you are sending information that so you say, oh, so you can send a message to like the Andromeda Galaxy. Why couldn't you just send that same message with the person who's traveling to the Andromeda Galaxy? And then you get into these like weird paradoxes of like information arriving before information can arrive, sort of thing. So I just don't ever see it happening. I don't
yeah. That's
think
fair.
that I don't think we have any sort of understanding of how it would happen or what would happen.
Isn't there like a famous thing like that where, like, if you could, like, if you could hypothetically look at Mars and you could put yourself on there.
Mhm.
There, I can't remember what there is. I've watched like a video on YouTube, but then, like, if you're near, like, if you go near a black hole and then come back, kind of thing, like, that's the only
Mhm.
way you can, like,
Yeah.
be on Earth and see yourself on Mars,
Hmm.
because it's like warp the time in between it, kind of thing. But yeah, no, I get
Yeah.
what you mean.
Black holes are special because that's where our understanding of physics break down, and you know maybe there is something in it, but personally, I don't think black holes hold the answer of how we're going to transport really quickly without killing ourselves. So,
Can you imagine, right? If, just saying now, the AI in like 100 years reanimates me and you because it's watched this episode and it goes, "This is what we do. We create singularities around the vehicle, and that's how we go places." We'd be like, "Well, damn it."
maybe black holes do hold the secret, but I just
That won't. We won't find out in our lifetime if that's the case anyway. So it's not worth talking about.
so
Well,
that was light sails. You say there was another spacey that you had, or
no, I thought it was, but
okay,
it just says here. I don't know why it's even in my notes. It says spacecraft transport. So God knows.
there we go, tick. Yeah, so as well as the maglev stuff, the other one that I looked at was mainly sort of planes for the near future. So we touched on electric planes and stuff in your bit, didn't we? But
Yeah.
yeah, it's interesting. I know on Twitter I put something about biofuels, and you got angry.
Yeah.
So I think you probably feel the same way that I do about biofuels. How I'm going to say it, they're just dumb. They're
Yeah.
just awful ideas, you know. But for jet fuel, they might be one of the only ways that we can make a fuel good enough that is slightly greener than fossil fuels.
Well, yeah, because currently isn't like jet fuel like one of the worst.
Mhm. It's kerosene, yeah. So at the moment, I don't think biofuels can even be made into jet fuel. So like we could, if we wanted to, make all cars run. And actually, I think in the UK and the US, a certain percentage of the petrol and diesel you get, well, maybe not diesel, but petrol you get is already biofuel. I think it's about 10% is biofuel, bioethanol. We don't have the fuels aren't good enough to be used in airplanes at all, and it's mainly like their chemistry. Like
Yeah.
planes fly high. If you're putting bioethanol in, it's going to freeze at pumps and stuff. So we just can't use it. So there's a lot of work in creating like crude fuels, just so we can get the sort of like bigger fractions like kerosene and stuff that can be used in planes. But that's ongoing. But I think for plane transport, biofuels are probably a good idea because they are better than fossil fuels in terms of environmental damage,
Yeah.
and they're probably one of the only. Personally, I don't see a way to move away from fuel from jets using kerosene for the next, as I said, sort of 50 years or so. I just don't see it. So biofuels are maybe a possible solution for that. But let's go on a bit of a rant about biofuels in general, shall we? Do you want to go down that hole, or
Yeah, no, go for it. I was going to say, actually, one thing I did want to mention, because I feel like it came and it went, and just before you go on your fuel about biofuels, we keep it with the planes. Like, what happened to the Concorde? That was it.
Oh, yeah. Before we go on to biofuels, we could talk about supersonic transport. We could do that.
There you go.
Yeah, but the Concorde.
Because I remember as a kid, right?
Mm-hmm.
The Concorde, I don't know whether it was just like my grandparents overhyping it or like my parents overhyping it, but it seemed like a massive deal.
Concorde changed the world. Concorde was maybe more impressive than the space shuttle. It was just incredible.
Yeah.
And it's such a shame. Like, there was problems with it, like the fact it used huge amounts of fuel when it was taxiing. But what killed Concorde was the Americans. Like, so basically the UK and France jointly produced Concorde. The Russians tried to produce the Tupolev Tu-144, which looks exactly like a Concorde.
Matty knows his planes.
Yeah, I actually flew before Concorde.
Have you?
That was the Tupolev Tu-144 flew before Concorde.
Oh, I thought you said you had that. Okay, cool.
Concorde wasn't the first supersonic commercial aircraft, but yeah, the Russian one was not great. It had a very bad history of crashing. And I think NASA actually bought one of them from the Russians, like used as like a research test bed or something. But basically, the other company that were trying to build a supersonic jet were Boeing for the US, and they just failed. They just couldn't do it. This was back in the 60s, and you know the 747, the jumbo jet with the hump. Like, that was like the secondary project. Like, a jumbo jet was like just a sideshow for like Boeing trying to build their supersonic transporter, and they just couldn't do it. And as America didn't have one, they basically banned Concorde flying over the US because of they said it was because of sonic booms, which is fair enough. They're not particularly great, but they banned US overflights, which basically meant that Concorde's whole market was lost. Like, the only places that you could fly it were the UK to New York. So that was it. So by doing that, they sort of killed off Concorde's business model, and eventually Concorde obviously left. But have you seen the news about Boom and Delta Airlines?
No.
So Boom there's 3 companies at the moment that are trying to build supersonic planes, and there's 2 which I forget the names of, but they're sort of trying to build smaller jets. And then Boom,
I think I know what you're talking about. Is it Gunsman or something? I think Guns.
I honestly can't remember, to be honest.
I've seen a trailer for it. Like, literally, I saw it on YouTube today. It was showing like the future of supersonic flight, and it was like this whole thing of what they were building, and it was like how it was American and stuff. Yeah.
But Boom are building a larger jet, so they're the ones that are trying to build something similar to Concorde. It's going to carry about 100 people, I think. And I think last week United Airlines put an order in for 15 aircraft with an option to purchase 35 more. They're expected to start taking passengers in 2029. That's cool. So the one thing that's holding it back at the moment is these sonic booms. So there's a lot of research going into it and trying to sort of dim them and make them a bit better. Because at the moment, still the rules are you can't fly over the US with sort of subsonic because of the sonic booms. I suspect if it's an American company that get there first and start making supersonic commercial aircraft, those rules might be relaxed. But we'll see. 2029, Boom are saying United will be carrying supersonic passengers. So
that's awesome.
It looks like it's coming back.
That'd be so cool. I never went on one, so I'd be totally down. I'd love to go.
Have you ever seen Concorde?
No, I haven't seen it.
I've seen a few of them. Oh, so good.
they look awesome. Like, I've seen them in like photos and stuff. They look cool, but like I've never like seen one in person or anything like that. And it'd be so cool to like Yeah, it'd be so cool to like hit the speed of sound and shit. That'd be awesome.
Yeah.
That'd be cool.
I genuinely think there's like a market for it as well. Of like, it's going to be expensive, obviously, but like people who will pay to fly very, very quickly places. You know, but yeah, we'll see. But yeah,
Even like the logistics and delivery world, like the ability to get things around quicker too. I can imagine carrying cargo and stuff. I'm sure there'll be people on planet Earth that will pay like mad delivery.
Amazon will get into it, and they'll just be using little supersonic planes that'll fly stuff supersonic to your house.
That's how you know it's at the door, because you hear the boom over the street. It doesn't need to knock, the air just hits your door.
All the windows break on your kitchen. Oh, parcel's here.
You can never miss it because it comes through your wall.
Yeah. How are we doing for time? How are we doing?
We're doing good. We're at 45 minutes. If you want to have a little biofuel rant.
Okay, we can have 5 minutes on biofuels, because I know you got engaged on this on Twitter, didn't you?
Yeah, I was sharing it under the Infinite Void handle as well, so people know that.
Yeah, I might have seen stuff.
So
my latest rage came from a video by Real Engineering on YouTube. He did a video on this, and I sort of been reading about biofuels and stuff, but this video basically summed up everything that sucks about them.
Yeah.
The bottom line is that there's two things really. Is that it's such an inefficient way to make power. Yeah. Like if you're going like basically you're relying on like photosynthesis of plants, and photosynthesis of plants is like 1% effective. So like 1% of the solar energy that they absorb is actually turned into usable stuff.
Yeah.
And then when you sort of factor in the fact that you've got to process it and turn it into actual fuel, you do the calculations, you end up putting more fuel into it, like more energy into this than you do get out of the biofuels. It's just rubbish, you know, whereas like we already have the technology. Just take those fields of corn, put solar panels on them, and they're 20% effective, and you've got usable electricity.
Yeah,
it's rubbish. And then
and the knock-on effect that it has as well. Like it's not just like you're saying, like when you put the solar panel down and it starts creating energy, that solar panel isn't directly affecting the environment for the next 50 years as well.
Yeah, exactly. But it's the fact that like we have means to produce electricity green. We rely on food. So why we can't eat electricity, so why not let the electricity produced in a good way, and we can eat the food rather than using the food to produce electricity really inefficiently?
Yeah, it's really, really dumb. I agree with
you. I can't remember the exact figures, but it was something like just to power like cars or something on 20% ethanol. So at the moment we're using like 10%. If we want to use like 20% ethanol, which the corn lobby in the US, which a big backer of biofuels, are really pushing for, because corn farmers can sell corn for a lot of money if they're selling fuel. If you want to make like 20% biofuels, you have to use something like 40% of all the agricultural land in the US just to produce fuel. Like there isn't enough land to produce enough biofuel to actually do 100% biofuel. It's not possible.
Yeah.
So let us eat the corn, and you can use a smaller area, you know, like deserts where you can't grow corn, to make electricity.
And let's just be better with our resources and manage them better, and not waste them like we're currently wasting them, like you're saying. Like it's just ridiculous. It makes no sense.
Yeah. Biofuel, it's one of those things of like, it looks really good on paper and it's a quite easy thing to do, but it's
SEO as well. It's like somebody sat there and thought, what word can we use that's going to make everybody think that this is great without them having to do any form of research?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And it's literally what it is. Like if you asked someone, what do you think of biofuel, and they did not know what it was, I can almost guarantee they'd go, well, it's a better option than normal fuel. And it's like, I don't know if it is. Well, it's kind of just as crap.
Yeah. The thing is that like with environmental issues, people just I think the main one is like global warming. People just think of global warming, oh, CO2 bad, but like environmental issues are a lot more nuanced than that. You know, you have the issue of land use, the issue of habitats being destroyed, and more importantly is water usage.
Yeah.
And I think it's not just the biofuels. I'm seeing it all the time of like people going, okay, plastics are bad, plastics are really bad. You know, which to a certain extent they are, but like it's better to produce a good plastic material that's going to last a long time and is going to be useful than producing lots and lots of like
Yeah.
things made from biological materials that have other impacts elsewhere that aren't as good.
Yeah.
And so like with biofuels, it uses something stupid like 40 times as much water as fossil fuels
Yeah.
and 250 times as much water as like solar panel manufacturing. And like again, we don't have unlimited water. You can't just keep doing this.
Yeah.
And you see it places like the one that annoys me is drinking straws. Like with the move from like, yeah, get rid of plastic straws, but buying a metal straw doesn't help
Yeah.
because like if you're using so much material and water to produce that metal straw,
Yeah.
you'd have less impact if you just reduce the amount of plastic straws you're doing.
Yeah.
And it's oh, it drives me mad. Like that, I think, like you said, that like there's like these buzzwords of like global warming, and people just think, oh, we've got to whatever the cost, we've got to reduce greenhouse gases. When like there's a more balanced thing where it's have an actual like bigger impact, and people just want to do like the easy thing that looks good. So
Yeah, I think something that is going to change that in the next couple of years are going to be like carbon footprint apps and stuff. I think it's going to
Mhm.
I think it's going to wake a lot of people up because I'm quite conscious of it, and I don't know if you've ever done one. I did one last week, and it told me I was like above the average Brit, and I was like, well, I'm trying, so I need to make some like better
Mhm.
decisions in other areas, kind of thing. And like,
Mhm.
it's just uneducated on the subject. I don't think it's not that it's a new thing, but it just hasn't been taught.
No. Yeah,
And
exactly.
unless you're like passionate about the planet, or you're like passionate about the human race, and you're not actively like learning these things yourself, it's like you say, you just get caught up in the buzzwords. If it's got green
Mhm.
or bio or
Mhm.
renewable in front of it,
Exactly.
it's
Like, I
just
don't blame anyone for this. If you go to the petrol station and you see, oh, 10% biofuel,
yeah.
oh, that must be better. I'll buy that.
Yeah.
Like, like you don't have any sort of like logic to not buy it. Then you know, I think, like I said before, it's got to come from the top, and like governments, and they seem to like sort of shifting the blame onto people of like, oh, everyone's got to do their little bit. When
Yeah.
it's not everyone doing a little bit. It's like building a system where people just naturally do the right thing.
Yeah.
It's you know, like the classic one is recycling. Like people don't want to just chuck stuff in landfill. Like
Yeah.
people don't want to do that. But if it's the easiest thing for them to do, and they're not given the options otherwise, then they're going to do it.
I tell you one
Like,
thing, actually. You know what? You saying that, I noticed a huge difference moving from like mid Wales even to England. Like
mhm,
back in our little like seaside town in like Wales, you got like different recycled bins for everything. We had like a paper one, we had a plastic one, we had a metal one, we had a cardboard one. And
mhm,
it was all on this like fancy contraption. And the different
mhm,
days of the week, there would be like a bin man every day, but one would
mhm.
be for like paper, one would be for plastic and stuff. And like everybody just recycled because there were different bins at your house for that stuff, and you got in
Yeah.
trouble if you all threw it in the same one. But like here, I know there's like rules and stuff, but like
Oh,
there's
I can tell you, like, oh,
yeah, there's two, and I'll occasionally like forget to put something in the wrong one or something, and nothing gets said.
no. Well, that's the thing. Like, I look at it as like, can this plastic tray be recycled? You know,
Yeah.
and weirdly, I looked this morning. It's like, oh, you can't recycle black plastics. Didn't
Yeah.
know that. I've been chucking black plastics in there for,
Yeah.
for months. It's like, Why can't I recycle black plastic like in the plastic recycling bin? It's
Yeah.
it's just simple stuff like that. But
I had one that baffled me. I had an antiseptic spray, and it was like the spray nozzle cannot be recycled, but the bottle can. And I was like, so you want me to take this thing apart and then start dropping it and things? I'll do that because I don't mind. But like, why isn't the whole thing able if half of it is and they're made out of the same material?
Yeah, it annoys me that like, obviously we should all try and do our own little bit, but like it's about making a system where the good thing is the easier thing to do. Like, like I'd say now, I'd love not to be able to own a car. Like if I could get to work, go shopping and stuff without a car, and then I occasionally had to rely on like hiring a car to go on holiday or something or whatever. Like that'd be great. And like the impact of like not owning a car would be awesome, but I just can't do it. Like there's no way that I could not own a car. So
I agree with you.
Yeah.
But,
we'll see.
Yeah, and we should probably call it there on our little rant. So thanks for listening to this week's episode, guys. If you enjoyed it, be sure to give us a like if you're watching us on YouTube, because it helps with the algorithm. And if we missed anything, or you've got another really cool means of transport that you've heard or read about for the future, let us know down in the comment section below. And if you want to keep up to date with everything The Infinite Void, you can head over to our Twitter and Instagram, which is at Infinite Void Pod. We've also got a new news channel called This Week on Planet Earth, which is a weekly news show, which is only available on YouTube, and you can follow that on Instagram at Swope News. And if you want to drop us a more meatier or lengthier email with some like topic ideas or suggestions, because I think we're kind of committed now to doing this Humanity of the Future series for a couple of episodes. So if you've got an idea for any episode or any topic within that, be sure to get in touch with us. And we hope you've enjoyed this episode. And yeah, if you're listening on Spotify, be sure to follow us. And if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, be sure to give us a good review, because we don't have many yet, so they always help. And yeah, we will catch you in the Infinite Void next week for part 3. Hey everyone, we wanted to take a moment to tell you about our brand new Patreon page.
Yeah, so we've devised a load of new goodies that are neatly packaged across 3 different tiers for you.
Tiers start at £3 and go all the way up to £10 a month.
Just to say, the Patreon is in no way an obligation, and we're going to continue making the podcast as it is, freely available across all the platforms. But if you'd like to support us and show your support, you can now.
So yeah, head over to patreon.com/Infinite Void Pod for more information.